Ladies and gentlemen, leadership is not a position, and it's not a title on a business card. Leadership is a daily decision, a decision to bring your best self to the world and invite others to do the same. A great leader begins with one simple principle. You cannot lead others until you first lead yourself. Leading yourself first is the foundation on which all other forms of leadership are built. Before you can influence anyone else, you must master the influence you have over your own choices, your own thoughts, and your own behavior. Many people want to lead teams, families, organizations, or movements, yet they struggle to lead their own day. True leadership begins in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when it's just you and your decision. Every habit you keep, every promise you make to yourself, every standard you accept. These shape the kind of leader you become long before anyone else sees it. Self-leadership starts with discipline. Discipline is not punishment. It's the daily act of choosing what you want most over what you want now. When you develop the discipline to control your time, your focus, and your action, you create a level of internal strength that carries into everything you touch. People trust leaders who live by their principles, not leaders who preach one thing and practice another. If you want others to be consistent, your own consistency must become non-negotiable. Another part of leading yourself is sharpening your mind. Your thinking determines your direction, and your direction determines your results. A cluttered mind leads to a cluttered life, but a clear, focused mind creates clarity for everyone around you. This means being intentional about what you allow into your head, what you read, what you watch, who you listen to, and what you focus on. Leaders cultivate a mindset that sees possibilities instead of limitation. They discipline their thoughts the same way an athlete disciplines their body, because they understand that leadership is built from the inside out. Raising your standards is equally important. A person's life rises to the level of the standards they set for themselves. If your standards are low, your performance will follow. If your standards are high, your energy rises to meet them. Great leaders ask more of themselves than anyone else would. They don't wait to be pushed, they push themselves. They don't settle for good enough, they aim for excellence in the small things, knowing that excellence eventually becomes a habit. And when excellence becomes your habit, leadership becomes your natural state. Another aspect of leading yourself first is accountability holding. You're self-responsible, without excuses, without blame, without delay. When something goes wrong, you look inward first. When something goes right, you ask how you can make it even better. This level of responsibility builds integrity, and integrity builds trust. People follow leaders they trust, and trust is earned the daily. Private victories long before it shows up in public achievements. Ultimately, leading yourself first is a lifelong commitment. It is a continuous process of evaluating, improving, and elevating. You don't need perfection. You need progress. You don't need brilliance. You need consistency. The work you do on yourself becomes the quiet force that influences everyone around you. Being the example rather than the instruction is one of the most powerful principles in leadership, because people learn far more from what you demonstrate than from what you say. Words can inspire for a moment, but behavior inspires for a lifetime. When others observe how you carry yourself, how you work, how you handle pressure, and how you treat people, they form their understanding of what is acceptable, what is expected, and what is possible. Leadership by example sets a standard that no speech, no memo, and no rulebook can ever match. People may challenge your ideas, but they rarely challenge a consistent example. To lead by example, you must live in alignment with the values you claim. If you talk about integrity, your actions must reveal honesty, even when dishonesty would be easier. If you expect punctuality, you must be the one who shows up early. If you want a culture of respect, your own conversations must reflect respect. People watch the small things. They see how you act when you're tired, frustrated, or uncertain. They notice how you respond to mistakes, whether you take responsibility or look for someone else to blame. Your actions teach louder than your instructions. Your behavior trains people without you ever speaking a word. When you choose to be the example, you carry the weight of consistency. Consistency is what convinces people that your standards are real. Anyone can behave well for a moment, but sustaining that behavior over time builds credibility. Consistency also creates predictability, and people follow what they can predict. When others know who you are, what you stand for, and how you will react, they feel more confident, stepping into their own responsibilities. Your steadiness becomes their security. Your reliability becomes the anchor that stabilizes the team. This is why leading by example is not just about being impressive. It's about being dependable. Being the example also requires humility. You cannot lead from ego because ego demands recognition, while example demands responsibility. You must be willing to do the work you ask of others, willing to show the discipline you expect, and willing to demonstrate the attitude you want reflected back. When people see you working with humility, they respect you more deeply. They know you aren't asking anything you wouldn't do yourself. That kind of leadership removes resistance and builds cooperation. Instead of pushing people from behind, you pull them forward through your actions. Another part of being the example is how you handle adversity. People learn from how you respond when things fall apart. Do you panic or stay calm? Do you complain or look for solutions? Do you point fingers or take ownership? Your reaction becomes the model for everyone else's reaction. In difficult moments, your example can either create a chain of negativity or a chain of resilience. A leader who maintains composure teaches others to do the same. A leader who stays focused teaches others to stay focused. In this way, your example becomes the emotional and mental framework for the entire group. Above all, leading by example creates influence without force. When your actions are aligned with your expectations, you don't need to demand respect. It comes naturally. You don't need to push people. They move with you. You don't need to convince them. They already believe because they have seen proof in the way you live and work. Investing in your own growth is one of the greatest responsibilities you carry as a leader, because you cannot give what you do not have. The strength of your influence is directly tied to the strength of your personal development. When you commit to growth, you widen your capacity to handle challenges, elevate your ability to guide others, and sharpen the insights that shape your decisions. Growth isn't something that happens automatically with age or experience. It is the result of intention, discipline, and continuous learning. The moment you believe you've learned enough is the moment your leadership begins to decline, because leadership requires constant renewal. The first step in investing in your growth is becoming a student again. Leaders who learn stay relevant, adaptable, and open-minded. They observe, ask questions, and remain curious. Curiosity keeps you moving forward. It pushes you to examine new ideas, challenge outdated beliefs, and stay mentally flexible. A leader who stops learning becomes rigid, and rigidity limits progress. When you make learning part of your lifestyle, you build a reservoir of knowledge that supports better choices, clearer judgment, and deeper confidence. This internal library becomes one of your most valuable tools. Another part of personal growth is developing emotional maturity. Leaders who work on themselves learn to manage their reactions, calm their frustrations, and control their impulses. Emotional maturity allows you to respond rather than react. It helps you stay grounded in the face of stress and maintain clarity in moments when others may panic. People look to leaders for stability, and that stability only comes when you have invested time in understanding your emotional patterns. The more aware you become of your triggers, strengths, and weaknesses, the more effectively you can guide yourself and others through difficult moments. Growth also requires expanding your skills. Every new skill you develop increases your effectiveness, whether it's communication, strategic thinking, organization, conflict resolution, or the ability to inspire others. Each skill strengthens your leadership toolkit. Skills don't appear overnight. They are built through practice, repetition, and the willingness to be uncomfortable. Growth is uncomfortable because it forces you into unfamiliar territory. But leaders who embrace discomfort expand their potential. They stretch beyond their limitations, discover hidden strengths, and develop resilience that becomes a core part of their leadership identity. Another element of growth is self-reflection. Taking time to evaluate your actions, your decisions, and your results is essential. Without reflection, you repeat mistakes. With reflection, you learn from them. Leaders who reflect become wiser with each experience. They identify patterns, recognize blind spots, and adjust their approach. Reflection is how you turn experiences into lessons and lessons into improvement. It is the quiet work behind the scenes that shapes powerful leadership in public. Investing in growth also means surrounding yourself with people who challenge you. You cannot grow an environment that keeps you comfortable. You need mentors who stretch your thinking, peers who hold you accountable, and environments that push you to rise higher. Growth-minded leaders seek feedback, welcome correction, and stay open to perspectives different from their own. They understand that iron sharpens iron, and that growth accelerates when you place yourself around people who refuse to let you remain the same. When you continually invest in yourself, you become a stronger, wiser, and more capable leader. The investment you make in your own development becomes the advantage you bring to every room, every challenge, and every person you're responsible for. Leading with purpose and clarity is the hallmark of every great leader, because people naturally follow someone who knows where they are going. When you possess a clear sense of direction, your actions become intentional, your decisions become more confident, and your presence becomes a source of stability for those around you. Purpose acts as the compass, clarity as the map. Without these two, leadership becomes guesswork, and guesswork creates confusion. People don't thrive in confusion, they thrive in certainty, and certainty begins with a leader who has taken the time to define why they lead and what future they are moving toward. Purpose is not simply a goal. It is the deeper reason behind the goal. It is the driving force that keeps you steady when obstacles rise and motivation fades. Purpose gives meaning to effort. It turns work into mission and transforms routine tasks into meaningful contributions. When you know your purpose, you gain strength that cannot be easily shaken. You make choices aligned with your values rather than with convenience. You stand for something rather than stand anywhere. A leader with purpose becomes a lighthouse, steady, unwavering, and visible, even in storms. Clarity brings structure to that purpose. It means having a vision that is specific enough to guide decisions, but open enough to allow flexibility. Clarity is knowing what you want, why you want it, and what steps will bring you closer. When a leader speaks with clarity, people feel safe because they understand what is expected of them and where their effort fits into the bigger picture. Confusion drains energy. Clarity directs it. When people can see the target, they commit with greater enthusiasm. When the target is vague, they hesitate. A leader's clarity eliminates hesitation and replaces it with momentum. Leading with clarity also requires communication that is simple, direct, and consistent. Many leaders make the mistake of overcomplicating their message. The best leaders communicate in ways that are easy to remember and easy to apply. Their words match their actions, and their actions reinforce their words. Clarity is not just expressed verbally. It is shown in decisions, priorities, and behavior. When your message and your actions align, people understand your vision instinctively. They don't have to guess. They don't have to interpret. They simply follow because they see a leader who doesn't waver. Another aspect of leading with purpose and clarity is the ability to make decisions with conviction. Indecision weakens leadership. When you hesitate, people feel uncertain. When you avoid making choices, people lose confidence. But when you operate with clarity, decisions become easier because you evaluate every situation through the lens of your vision. You know what fits and what does not. This decisiveness inspires trust because people see that you are guided by something bigger than temporary emotions or shifting circumstances. Purpose and clarity also influence how you handle setbacks. A leader without purpose becomes discouraged quickly. A leader without clarity becomes overwhelmed. But when both are in place, setbacks become lessons rather than roadblocks. Purpose reminds you why the challenge is worth facing. Clarity helps you determine how to move forward. Together they form a leadership mindset that is resilient, steady, and focused, even when the path becomes difficult. When you lead with purpose and clarity, you create an environment where people feel inspired, directed, and united. They know the vision, they see the path, and they feel confident following you because you are not wandering, you are guiding. Lifting others up is one of the most defining qualities of a true leader, because leadership is not measured by how high you climb, but by how many people rise with you. When you commit to helping others discover their strengths, you shift from managing tasks to developing human potential. People don't grow under pressure alone. They grow under encouragement, guidance, and belief. When a leader sees potential in someone before they see it in themselves, it ignites a spark that can transform their entire path. Your confidence in others becomes fuel for their progress, and your encouragement becomes the voice that echoes in their mind long after the moment has passed. To lift others up, you must first respect the uniqueness of each person. Everyone has different talents, different rhythms, different strengths. Leadership is not about forcing everyone into the same mold, but about discovering what makes each person valuable. Some people shine through creativity, others through discipline. Some excel in planning, others in execution. A leader who lifts others up pays attention closely enough to notice these strengths and provides opportunities for them to grow. People flourish when they are placed in positions that align with their abilities and ambition. Helping others reach their potential also requires patience. Growth does not happen instantly. People need room to make mistakes, to learn, to improve. A leader who lifts others up does not react with frustration when someone stumbles, but uses the moment as a teaching opportunity. They guide without humiliating, correct without weakening confidence, and challenge without overwhelming. This kind of leadership creates an environment where people feel safe enough to stretch themselves and attempt what they once doubted they could do. Give it generously is another essential part of elevating others. Leaders who hoard recognition shrink the spirit of the team, but leaders who celebrate the contributions of each person strengthen loyalty, motivation, and unity. When you give credit, you show people that their work matters. You reinforce their belief in their own ability. You build a team that is proud not only of the results, but of the way those results were achieved. And when recognition is freely given, people become more invested in the mission because they feel seen and valued. At the same time, lifting others up means taking responsibility when things go wrong. Great leaders absorb the weight of mistakes so their people can stay focused on learning rather than fear. Accepting responsibility is not about taking blame, it is about protecting the confidence and morale of the team. When people know their leader will stand with them in difficult moments, they take greater ownership in their roles and push themselves with more courage and commitment. Another way leaders elevate others is by teaching them how to think, not just what to do. Instead of giving answers, they ask questions that spark deeper understanding. Instead of solving every problem themselves, they show others how to solve it. This develops independence rather than dependency. The greatest leaders create more leaders, not followers. They equip people with the mindset, the skills, and the strength to step into their own version of leadership. Lifting others up is an ongoing practice built on belief, patience, generosity, and responsibility. Every interaction becomes a chance to empower someone, to build confidence, and to help them rise higher than they thought possible. Building a legacy through service is the deepest expression of leadership because it shifts the focus from personal success to lasting impact. When a leader chooses to serve, they operate from a place of contribution rather than recognition. Service transforms leadership from something you do into something you are. It means your actions are driven by the desire to make things better for others, to elevate the environment you are part of, and to leave behind something that continues to grow long after you've stepped away. A legacy is not formed by titles, achievements, or applause. It is formed by the lives you touch, the people you help, and the values you model every day. Serving begins with a mindset of humility. A leader who serves does not place themselves above the team, but alongside them. They listen before they speak. They understand before they instruct. They lead from within the group rather than from a distance. Humility does not diminish authority. It strengthens it because people respect leaders who stay grounded, accessible, and genuine. When people feel your sincerity, they trust you more deeply. They follow you not because they must, but because they believe in the heart behind your leadership. Service also means prioritizing the needs of others. It requires seeing beyond your own agenda and recognizing what will benefit the team, the mission, and the future. Sometimes this means stepping back so others can step forward. Sometimes it means making decisions that reward the group rather than yourself. And sometimes it means doing the quiet, unnoticed work that holds everything together. When you serve, you focus less on claiming credit and more on creating success. You measure progress not by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute. Another part of service is the willingness to give your time, your energy, and your attention to the growth of the people around you. Leaders who serve mentor others, share knowledge, and invest in development. They take the time to understand people's dreams, strengths, and struggles. They help remove obstacles and open doors. They offer guidance without taking control. This kind of service has a multiplying effect because every person you empower become someone who can empower others. Your influence expands through the people who were strengthened under your leadership. Service also builds a culture of trust. When people see that their leader consistently acts with sincerity and generosity, they feel safe. They know they are valued not just for their performance, but for who they are. This trust creates loyalty that cannot be bought. It makes people willing to give their best effort because they are working with someone who is committed to their well-being. A culture grounded in service becomes a place where people support each other, communicate honestly, and work with passion because they sense they are part of something meaningful. A legacy built through service is not created in a moment. It is built in consistent, everyday actions. It is formed in how you treat people, how you make decisions, and how you show up even when no one is watching. A lasting legacy comes from lifting others, living your values, and adding value wherever you go. When you choose service, you create a ripple effect that continues long after the work is done.